This show is brought to you by Sim Experience. Do you have a butt kicker or transducer that's not getting the job done? Is it shaking to just the low-end sounds? What if it shook when it was supposed to? SimVibe is an advanced multi-dimensional audio-based feedback software that utilizes 1 to 8 bass transducers and provides the correct physics-based vibrations throughout your simulator. This can greatly enhance immersion and drivability. All you need is one shaker, an extra sound card, and SimVibe software. To check it out for yourself, go to simexperience.com and then click on products and then SimVibe. Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and my first show of 2015. I'm Darren Ganji, and today I'm going to be checking out the Oculus Rift DK2. And if you're not familiar with what the Oculus Rift is, it's basically a head-mounted display, and it's 3D. Also tracks where you're looking. Been out for a while now. This is actually DK2. There was a DK1, and this is a development kit. And this was specifically made for developers. So this is not the final consumer version, although consumers can purchase it. And speaking of which, I'd like to thank Guido Mercera, who wanted one of these, hit me up on Skype and asked if I would order it for him. And I said, sure, because he couldn't get it shipped to where he's out of the US, so he couldn't get it shipped there. He couldn't order it, or he was having some kind of issue. So anyway, I said, sure, I'll do it if you let me check it out first. So he said, sure, go ahead, and I've had it now for a little over a week and gonna have it for another couple days. But I'd like to thank him for letting me hook this up, or letting me try this out, I should say, and I've had it long enough to do pretty much a full review on it. I honestly would like to have it longer to really get it dialed in, and I'll get into more of that in a minute, but because it takes a lot of tweaking. Anyway, and that's not a surprise again because it's a developer's kit. So what do you get in the box? First of all, you get this head-mounted display. It's got eye cups, basically 2 eye cups, and it actually has a Samsung Galaxy Note display inside of here that's capable of 960 by 1080 per eye and up to a 75 hertz refresh rate. And you know what? It's been out for a while. You want more specs, just Google Oculus Rift DK2, and there's lots of information. And I was gonna do a full setup, like how to get this thing set up with iRacing and Assetto, Corsa and that kind of stuff. But honestly, there's guys that have had this, and maybe even some girls that have had this a lot longer than I have. So they are probably better suited to guide you on how to get this thing running. Because there's depending on the title that you're going to run it with, whether it's sim racing or outside of sim racing, there is a lot of variables and a lot of different ways you can do this. So I recommend going into the iRacing forum and reading the thread on Oculus Rift. Honestly, iRacing guys, you guys should create a section just for the Oculus Rift so that a lot of guys can talk about different things, because there's just so many variables. Assetto, Corsa, same thing, and I also tried it with Live for Speed, and that they all set up differently. So what do you get in the box? Back to that. So you get the Oculus Rift. Basically, there's 2 cables that are coming off the top here. The straps are adjustable. We've got Velcro straps up here, one that goes over the top of your head, and then this goes around the side of your head and is adjustable. One quick tip I'm going to give you: this thing comes with a cloth to clean your lenses with, and for me, just sitting it on my head and having those lenses push up against my forehead, I noticed that they were getting distorted, I guess you could say. I read that cloth can scratch these lenses, so I was using lens cleaner or cloths specific for glasses and lenses like my camera here. So anyway, be really careful when you're cleaning it, but clean them fairly often, because Guido's started to get, again, from just my head, and I can see him sitting here from my last time running, it just got a little, like, smudge on it, I guess you could say. So anyway, comes with this cable. I guess this cable is about 8 feet long, and there's a USB and an HDMI. Also comes with an adapter so you can plug it into a DVI port. so it goes HDMI into DVI port. Comes with an AC adapter, which I honestly didn't hook up because it basically said it was optional and that it powered this USB. There's a USB port right up in here. Let me open that up really quick. Actually, that comes right off. There's a USB port in there, so that's basically if you want to plug something into that, which I didn't want to have any other cables coming off of my head, so I did not mess with that. Power button's right there. It's fairly lightweight. I wouldn't say it's the most comfortable thing having to have attached to your head, but it's not bad. You get used to it being there. So anyway, it comes with an AC adapter that I did not plug in. Standard is US plug, but it also comes with 3 different adapter plugs for your particular region. So Guido, I think that's US is the only one that uses that type of plug. So Guido and anybody else that orders this thing from around the world, there's 3 different types of power adapters. Also comes with a second set of I cups. These are the B cups. And these are meant for people that are nearsighted, where versus the ones that come in it are for normal vision, which is what I have. And it also comes with the head tracking camera that has this little adjuster on it, so you can hook that up to the top of your TV or whatever, and you're basically supposed to have this thing pointed right at you. So it basically tracks all your head movement. And that's about it that comes in the box. So again, this is the DK2. The consumer version, or the CV1, is supposed to be out sometime this year. And I've heard rumors of summer, but I haven't heard an exact date. And there's definitely supposed to be changes made to it when the consumer version comes out. So basically, this is a developer's kit, so developers can program for it, get it all dialed in for their particular software and get it ready for the CV1. So, getting this thing set up. Comes with this manual also, which is basically for the developer's kit. And it tells you how to plug everything in, but it tells you to get first thing is to install the Oculus software development kit. You don't need that if you're a consumer like me, or most likely you. You have to get the runtime, which, and actually the best thing to do is, I'm gonna put a link to it here in my description, is get the PDF that's the consumer's guide on how to get this thing set up. And basically what the runtime does is because you can plug it in and it shows up as a separate monitor. But you need that runtime because it has the driver, the positional tracking sensor driver, the Oculus service application, and the system tray and configuration utility. So once you do that, get that installed, I would reboot. And then there's a couple different ways. And again, I'm not going to go over setup too much because I haven't had enough time with it to be an expert. Trust me, I spent hours and hours, days worth of hours trying to get this thing dialed in for iRacing, Assetto, Corsa, and Live for Speed. And then just trying to get it set up properly with my system. Speaking of which, my system, I was running it on my secondary PC here, not on Frankenrig back there. And my secondary PC is a 6-core AMD processor with an NVidia GTX 760. And the reason why I did that is I wanted to see how it would perform on an older system. Because I was assuming that you don't need as much horsepower to run something like this, because basically it's running in 3D and it's running 2 images, like a split image. And you'll see that from the footage I have here. I've got some direct capture. But it just doesn't require as much horsepower as, say, running triple screens back there. At least I assumed that. And now, in hindsight, I wish I had some more time with it, because I would have liked to have plugged it into my Frankenrig. My Frankenrig, I have an i5, pretty much the fastest i5 you can get, a 4690. I haven't overclocked it, but it's 3.5 gigahertz with a 780 GTX. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I didn't run it on that, but I ran it on this system, and it did, for the most part, run fine. But again, it takes a lot of tweaking and dialing in to get it right. So, that being said, first thing I tried it out was with iRacing. That's what I run the most. And I've seen some videos and read some stuff about, and people swear by the Oculus and how great it is, and you know that's what they race with. And so I figured let's try it with that. And once you have everything set up outside in Windows, as soon as you boot up iRacing, it says a little pop-up comes up and says, "Do you want to run with the Oculus Rift?" So iRacing, so far, in my opinion, has the best support for this. And it's, for the most part, a plug-and-play experience. But again, it does take some tweaking and dialing in. You can run it in direct mode or extended mode. Originally, iRacing ran in both, but then after I went back and forth a few times, I couldn't get it to run in direct mode anymore. iRacing just wouldn't boot up, so I had to run it in what's called extended mode, which basically makes this your secondary monitor or display. Another thing I'd recommend in iRacing is map a button for the head tracking display or head mounted display, HMD. There's a way you can map, and it's, if you go to controls and it's at the very bottom, to recenter your tracking device. Because every once in a while, and this is I'll get to that in my cons, this thing loses center on you. So, you know, your view may get skewed a little bit while you're driving, and you just push that button, it'll recenter. So again, to get the most out of this with whatever title you're going to use it with, I would go, especially since you made the investment and you purchased it, or if you plan on purchasing it, or maybe you want to read more to see what it's all about and see some of the issues people may be having, go read up on this in the iRacing forums. Again, I think it's in the hardware section right at the top. It's pinned. It's a 113-page thread about running the Oculus. So read up, do some research before just getting this. I, without doing that research first, was under the assumption that, and I almost bought one. I had this thing sitting for a couple days right around Christmas, and I'm like, man, maybe I should just buy one myself, sell off my monitors, and just run with the Rift from now on. I'm glad I didn't do that, because it's really finicky. And again, I'm not surprised. Again, it's the DK2 development kit. This is not the final. And in my opinion, this is the early days of a head-mounted display or virtual reality. So it's not perfected yet. So anyway, back to what I tried it with. Also tried it with Assetto Corsa and Live for Speed. Assetto Corsa was a pain in the ass. I'm just going to put it bluntly. You have to trick Windows into thinking that, well, you have to not trick it, but you have to set it up to where this is your primary display. This is another thing I want to tell you. This thing does not work at all. I mean, it works, but in Windows, you can't see anything. So using this, so if you thought you were just going to plug this in and not have a monitor to do your Windows stuff, not happening. So anyway, with Assetto Corsa, and then you have to make sure you have stuff turned off within game, set it to the Oculus Rift, but you have to tell Windows that the Oculus is your primary display, or Assetto will not boot into it. Once you do, you can drive with it in Assetto. You can look around the cockpit. The cockpits look amazing, but it's poorly implemented in my opinion. And again, this is a developer's kit. I can't really hold it against Kunos for not getting this thing fully set up for the Oculus. It works, but that's about as far as I'll go with it. You can't get to your menus. You know, one of the cool things about Assetto is you can use all these apps while you're driving, and you can't do any of that when you have this thing set up. So, and then I tried it with Live for Speed. Live for Speed was definitely better implemented, or the implementation, I should say, for the Oculus was closer to what iRacing did. But unfortunately, one of the issues, and just type in Oculus Rift in Google, Judder, Judder. And basically what that is it's the head tracking not running smoothly. And I gotta tell you, when you're getting judder effects, man, you can get dizzy. And that's another thing, backing up before you go into game, make sure you set up, there's a bunch of different configuration, and read some tutorials, read the PDF that I have a link to on setting up the Oculus properly, because you set up your pupil distance, IPD. I don't know the exact term or what that acronym means, but basically you set up the distance of your pupils. You can set up on the side here. You can set up how, and it says use a quarter. I would like some knobs here. I think that'd be nicer for the CV one. But you can basically, with these side adjusters, change the distance of the eye cups. Basically, close to your eye or further away. At first, I did not get it adjusted properly, and I couldn't run this thing for 5 minutes without getting dizzy. So get that all dialed in, and once you do, everything looks more crisp and just overall much better. So back to Live for Speed. Live for Speed, it would not stop juddering on me. And again, that may be because of my older system, but you would think Live for Speed being a dated title, not requiring as much horsepower, that the judder wouldn't be there. Didn't have it much in iRacing or Assetto Corsa. It was pretty much a smooth experience. But in Live for Speed, for me, it was unplayable. Again, the implementation looked to be there for the most part. You gotta do a little tweaking. All three I had to run in that extended mode, but it did work. That's gonna leave me to some pros and cons. And let's start with the pros. So the first pro, head tracking. Head tracking is, if you've ever heard of Track IR, it's very similar to running a Track IR, except for everything's built into this. I think there's some infrared markers or something on this from what I've read, and basically it tracks your head with this camera. The next pro that I put was less horsepower as far as your computer goes than running triples, but honestly don't think that's the case. I think you need almost equal to run triples. I think you could get away with a little less. Again, my 760 will not run triples. I tried it and it was just, I had to go up to the 780 Ti. It ran it, but graphics turned off, and anyway. Next pro, it puts you in the cockpit. So it's definitely more immersive than running with monitors. And it's 3D, so you're full 3D, everywhere you look, it's more of a 3D environment, or it is a 3D environment versus just 2D when you're looking through your monitors. The next pro, a lot more affordable than running triple screens. This could equal the cost of one monitor when you're running triples. So you still need a fairly high horsepower graphics card, so that's going to cost you regardless. But I think you can still get away with some lower end stuff and still run this. Another cool thing, and it's back to the head tracking, you can look all around. You can turn around and look out the back of the car. Open wheel cars, that's another thing I'd like to say, was definitely the most fun, because you can look over your shoulder and you're looking over, the tub of the open wheel car. So, and my final pro, it can be really cool once you get it all dialed in. Again, I get a lot of questions. What's the difference between, and somebody had asked me to do a piece on running on the PC versus the console, pros and cons to both. And this is one of the cons to running on the PC. It's just a lot of trial and error, a lot of tinkering, and this requires that. And that's going to be one of my cons. But once you get it dialed in, and you get used to it, it's pretty cool. So let's get to some more cons. It's not the most comfortable thing to have attached to your head. It's not bad, and again, you get used to it. It's not that heavy. It's fairly lightweight. And another thing is the cables coming off the back of your head. You need to be fairly close to your PC, within 8 feet or so to the back of your PC. So that could be an issue depending. I would not recommend using any kind of extension cables because you get the most out of what's coming through those cables. I had read that the CV1 might be wireless, but I just don't know how they're going to do that. Next con, the resolution is very pixelated. Now, I tried a DK1 over a year ago back at Sim Experience, and it had a big time what's called screen door effect. So it's like you're looking through a screen door, and this one is definitely much better, but it still has that screen door effect. You can basically see every pixel. And I thought that was going to be eliminated for the most part when the DK2 came out, but it's not. So I think they need to bump up the resolution and to basically these cups are like magnifiers, and they're put up right up, you know, against that screen or that LCD in there. So anyway, it's pretty pixelated, and I can't. The only way I can convey that is by telling you, because you can't see it when I have it on the screen there, and you know the footage I have here. But when you have it on your head, you can see the pixels. Next con, the head tracking could be juddery, or can reset while you're driving, or even sometimes it'll just reset just a hair, and it can just completely throw you off. So that's a con. Finicky to set up. Lots, and I just mentioned that. There's a lot to do to get it going, and to get it going right, and every game's different. Again, this is just the DK2. I'm going to keep throwing that disclaimer out. You know, this is not the consumer version. This version was meant for developers. So, next, and this is going to be the case with the CV1 as well. You can't see the buttons on your wheel. You can't see your wheel. You can't see anything around you unless you take the head or you pop it up. You can't see your keyboard, your mouse, your button boxes. If you have external displays, those are all going to be useless if you have one of these. So that's definitely a con. Another con, this is just an iRacing, the virtual mirror was gone. So you had to use the cockpit mirrors, which kind of limited in what you can see. So that was a con. And then the last one I already mentioned, cables coming off of your head. So let's get to some final thoughts. Again, as we all know, this is a developer's kit. And I thought the resolution, and again, I mentioned a lot of this already, but I thought the resolution was going to be bumped up from the DK2. I'm hoping to see like a 4K or a much higher resolution solution for the CV1. This for me just isn't cutting it as of right now. And again, it looks kind of like you're going through a screen door, and you do get kind of used to it, but the biggest complaint I have is that you can't see as far into the distance. So it's harder to pick up your braking points. It's harder to judge distance. And I've tried 3D with the NVidia 3D Vision, and it's not like that in 3D Vision. It's a much more crisp, clear experience, where this is not, and I was hoping that this would be. Some people swear by this thing, by the Oculus, and I'm sure I'm gonna get some comments that, oh, I didn't have enough time, or this and that, but you know what? This thing isn't for me. This thing just is not cutting the mustard for me. I would not run a serious hardcore race with this setup. As a matter of fact, I didn't even run a race with this setup because I just didn't feel as comfortable. I didn't want the juddery, issues happening. I didn't want the camera resetting. I didn't want to take somebody out because of it. This just does not give me the quality that I'm used to running in triple screens or even a single large monitor. It's cool for messing around. It's cool for checking out cockpits in cars, but beyond that, this just is not for me. This is, I'm not talking for everybody. I'm just talking for Darren Ganji here. This is my opinion on the Oculus. And again, the DK2. Again, I was thinking I might replace my triples, but as of right now, there's no way. Maybe down the line with the CV1, once I try it, I won't buy it unless I try it. But this is still early in virtual reality land, and I'd say based on what this thing does, the future's very bright when it comes to virtual reality, because it is pretty damn cool. But it's not for me. So again, I'd like to thank Guido Mercera for hooking me up, and I mispronounced your name, Guido. I apologize. I know you got your first name right, but it could be Mercera. Anyway. I'd like to thank you again for letting me try your Oculus Rift. Hopefully you'll enjoy this a lot more than me. Another thing too, really quick before I go, I've read that some people's eyes, everybody's eyes are different widths, and everybody's head shape different. So this may not work for some people because your eyes may be closer. Mine were able to work just fine. I heard that some people get really dizzy and nauseous. Once I got it dialed in, I did not have that issue. Hopefully, Guido, you won't have that issue. But, the Oculus just isn't for everybody. And even in long term, in the future, it may not be for everybody. Luckily, my eyes have pretty normal spacing from what I gathered in the setup. And again, you can adjust that. There's ways to adjust it with the configuration utility. So again, I think the future's really bright. You know, maybe a couple years down the line, this is going to be perfected and just be amazing. I don't know, I'd like a way to be able to see outside, especially for us sim racers that have all these different peripherals that you're basically flying blind, and you have to get used to all your placement of everything. You know, I run with a shifter, but it would have been affected by that. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed my look at the Oculus Rift. I enjoyed checking it out. Not for me, but again, it may be for you. We appreciate you coming to our website to discuss this, ISRTV.com. Come to our forums to discuss it. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We've got daily news there, and we'll be discussing this. Or you're posting my video on this, so give me your take on what you think of the Oculus, either in the comments here on YouTube, subscribe to us here on YouTube. The thumbs up would be appreciated. And Happy New Year to everybody out there. I'm Darren Ganji for Inside Sim Racing. That's going to wrap it up. I'll see you guys next time.